I have great pleasure in welcoming Ajmal Hasan, who has been there without his presence with the camel's photo that I mentioned to you today. So, Ajmal Hasan, thank you, panelists. Ajmal Hasan is the education manager at Maliha Archaeological Center, chief engineer, Dubai Natural History Group. Ajmal currently heads the education department, state-of-the-art archaeological and eco-tourism facility in Sharjah. An avid trekker, naturalist, Ajmal can be found only in the deserts most of the mornings, wadis and mountains of UAE whenever he has free time. He originally hails from Bangalore in South India. He's a computer engineering background. I didn't know that. Okay. But has always been in sync with nature and passion for nature and love for reptiles instilled in his, since his childhood. And he has done 350 solo treks. Is this all in the UAE? 350 solo treks since 2008. And he has beautiful photographs. And he will just run through that in the next 10 minutes and then open for questions for another 5. Please welcome Ajmal Hasan, who's been the person behind the photograph that you see right here.
Good afternoon. I've been here since morning, so I had to look at the watch. Wonderful to seeing you all here today. And as Sandhya has graciously announced, my name is Ajmal. I'm not a photographer in many ways, but what I am is very passionate about the environment, about the ecosystem, be it back home in India or in the UAE. And in this short 10 minutes, what I hope to show you is completely different than what you've experienced over the past couple of hours or more. It's talking about, thank you. It's talking about the environment of the UAE. It's talking about the plants and animals of the UAE. So it's a different theme, but it kind of changes the whole experience that you have today here. So it's kind of nice to know more about the ecosystem. I've been hearing ecosystem, but it doesn't relate to the ecosystem I know a lot in today's presentation. But that's all part and parcel of life in many ways. All right. So just a quick overview, as Sandhya already mentioned. I work for the Sharjah government. We've recently opened an archaeological center, and I head their education department. So what I do is pretty much what I'm doing right now: talking about nature, talking about archaeology, talking about history, human history. History of plants and animals, and then showing people how they all relate to us in every way, so to speak. This short presentation is designed to be long in the sense that we've got 42 slides, but I'm going to breeze through each one of them just to give you an idea of what exists in the deserts. The desert is not really as barren as you think it is. There are a lot of species out here that survive and thrive, and some species, surprisingly, can be found back home in India as well, which tells you a lot. It tells you about history. It tells you about how continents once, millions of years ago, were all locked together. The Thar desert of Rajasthan has kejri, which is a tree you find in the UAE as well. Prosopis cineraria is the Latin name, and ghaf is the Arabic name. As Sandhya knows, I'm a big fan of this tree because of the fact that it's not just the national tree of the UAE, but it also is a tree that survives in the desert wherever there's water underneath the ground. So we'll show you some of those, some pictures of this tree as well. Quickly. Oops. Okay. All right. Just another short bio. And what you're seeing is me looking at striped mantis, Blepharopsis mendica, which is an insect. It's a mantis. I'm sure most of you know what a mantis is. A praying mantis that can be found in the UAE and the surrounding areas. I don't need to go through this because Sandhya's already given you information about me. Okay, that picture was taken by a friend of mine who had a camera as well. All right, and he took this photo as I was admiring this beauty. He got me a bit squint-eyed, but that's okay. I'll take that. Sure. I won't talk too much about this slide, but basically what I'm trying to do in this presentation is tell you what exists in the UAE besides sand and mountains and wadis and very little water in the form of wadi waters and wadi rivers in many ways. I'll just talk to you about the last idiom that I mentioned out there. It says, a picture speaks 1,000 words. So that's what I hope to showcase by showcasing some of my pictures here. so that you understand a bit more about the UAE's natural history. I'm going to just, like Sandhya mentioned, if I'm not at work, on my weekends I'm out in the deserts and the mountains exploring the landscapes of the UAE, trying to look for plants and animals. And I find some interesting views, I see some interesting landscapes, I find some interesting animals and interesting plants as well. I'm an all-rounder when it comes to natural history. I like to take pictures of plants, animals. Like I say, mostly I like to take pictures of anything that moves or exists and lives is not human. So I'm not good with human photography, but with animals I do a pretty good job. All right, so this is in Jebel Jais. I'm just showcasing 4 pictures from my 4 past treks. And we were climbing up a mountain, and this was the view we got to see from atop the wadi. As you can see, it's a beautiful landscape out there, and Jebel Jais is the tallest mountain of the UAE in Ras Al Khaimah, so we were there recently. This is Al Ain. It actually is in the UAE, and this is what is called the Tilapia Lake, which is also called Zakhar Pools in Arabic. So there's a water treatment plant out there which releases its treated water into this large man-made lake, which is called the Tilapia Lake. And the landscape there is very beautiful because you have a man-made lake in the middle of the desert, and then you have rolling sand dunes and the mountains of Jabal Hafid in the background. Very picturesque. This was last week in Leha, near my workplace. We were on top of a mountain trekking, and the view we got was this, because of the fog. I'm sure most of you have already been through the fog recently. So the fog was enveloping the whole area, and it was beautiful to look at because we were on top of the mountain looking down at a plain where there's lots of villages and farms, but nothing was visible because of the fog. This is the ghaf tree, all right? This is a tree, like I mentioned, it's the kejri in Rajasthan, and kejri, exactly, kejri. It is a desert species, and most of the animals of the desert rely in one way or the other dependent on the species for their survival, for their livelihood, food. Camels eat this tree, the leaves as well, etc. Flora of the UAE. What you're looking at is the roots of the kejri, or the roots of the ghaf tree. All right. I found this this tree in the middle of the Sharjah desert in 2010, and it's kind of stuck on now. Every few months, I have to go to visit this tree, and I do that to date. For the past 8 years, it's like a fix. I can't get rid of it, and I have to go every few months and see this tree and touch its roots. Don't ask me why, but that's me. So in this picture, you can see I took this picture at sunrise. You can almost see the silhouette of a woman in there. So it's quite interesting, right? That's another thing I do have is a phenomena called pareidolia. All right, pareidolia is the when you see human things in nature or in inanimate objects. That's called pareidolia, all right? So that's something that many people have. You see shapes in clouds, you see shapes in stone, so it's very interesting. Quickly, I'm going to breeze through some species. This is Anagallis arvensis, or it's called scarlet pimpernel. I've only seen this twice in 8 years living in the UAE. And this is found in the mountains of Fujairah, a very interesting plant that comes out only after a good patch of rain. This is Solanum virgianum, which is called a nightshade. We have a few of these in India as well. These are all, and I'm just let me reiterate, all the species I'm showing you today are the ones which are kind of rare in the UAE. Blepharis ciliaris. This is another species that's a mountain dweller, and it's a very pretty flowering species, which again comes out after rains. Fagonia arabica is a flowering plant, which is a wadi dweller, again, mountain dweller. Arnebia hispidissima, or Arabian primrose. We have a similar variety of this plant in India as well, but those are much more prolific. They're they spread over the whole area, basically. This species is very limited. Again, it comes out after the rains. Calotropis procera, al-ashqar is what they call it in Arabic. And this is the Sodom's apple milkweed plant, which we have a relative in India. It's called Calotropis gigantea. This is another species which is heavily dependent on water below the soil. Citrullus colocynthus is a desert gourd or desert squash. It's related to the watermelons family, and you get this a lot in the deserts. Whether it rains or not, this is a perennial species. It grows throughout the year, but it's especially more prolific after the rains. Okay. This is Salvia aegyptica, which is a plant of the mountains. Very pretty flowers on this plant. Almost looks like a dancing doll. So put it here. Aeromobium aegypticum is another species that grows in the wadis. Flowering plant and very pretty flowers. Sometimes the flowers have different contrasts and different colors within the same plant, as in this case. Silene villosa is another desert growing plant, very pretty. Launia macronata is another flowering species of the deserts. Asphodilus fistulosus, which is related to the onion family, is another species that is found in the mountains. Nerium oleander, or oleander, which we have back home in India as well. There's a native species called Nerium, and these are specifically growing in the mountains. Periploca aphylla is a very interesting plant because it has no flowers. Aphylla means no flowers, no leaves. Cystine tubulosa is a parasitic plant which grows in the coastlands of the UAE. These are its flowers. This is Acacia nilotica, one of the acacia species you find in the UAE. It has very pretty flowers. Caparis is a caper plant. Pentotropis nivalis is another rare species that you get only in the mountains of the UAE. It has pretty spiked and, as you can see, wheel-shaped flowers. All right, the more interesting part is the fauna of the UAE. I'm sure all of you know that there is fauna, there are animals in the UAE, but not as we know it back home in India. We have thousands of species, whereas the UAE has species which are very limited and they're very dependent on the natural landscape and rain and water and basically food. So wherever you have a good amount of food, animals thrive there. This is Vulpus arabicus, or the Arabian red fox. I found this in our very close to our museum a few months back. Right? My favorite species, okay, snakes. There are over 18 species of snakes in the UAE, and I've seen 17 of them. So I'm still waiting for one. That one has been eluding me a lot, so hopefully I get it this year. So I'm hoping for that. This is the Arabian horn viper. It's a very interesting species because, as you can see, it has horns above its eyes, but really those horns are not present in all animals. Only about 10% of the population of this species has horns. The others are hornless. So, interesting. Echis carinatus sauchereki, or the saw-scale viper. This is the snake responsible for more deaths across the world than cobra bites or any other animal. It's the 7th most venomous species in the world, and we have it in India as well. In India, it ranges from up north in Gujarat all the way down to Tamil Nadu. So it's a very well-ranged snake and very aggressive. As I said, it's venomous, highly venomous, number 7 in the world, which means its venom has cytotoxic, myotoxic, cell-breaking tissues and muscle-breaking venom, etc. So this is one species that you need to watch out for if you ever head out at night during the summer months. The cooler months are not good for snakes. Snakes don't enjoy being out in the cold because they're cold-blooded, right? This is a species I've been looking for 6 years, and I finally found it about 5 kilometers above the ground in the middle of the night on top of a mountain in the Fujairah Mountains. So this is Pseudocerastus persicus, or the Persian horn viper. It's, like I said, very difficult to find. And if you look at the colors match the rocks around it, so it's very well camouflaged. You have to be very careful walking in the area where the snakes exists, because otherwise there could be a potential for snake bite, and it's dangerous. Yeah. Echis omanensis is the Oman saw-scale viper, which is also venomous, but not as venomous as the saw-scale viper, or the what we call the Oman, the Sindh saw-scale viper. These 4 photographs are of all the 4 viper species of the UAE. There's only 4 vipers in the UAE, and these are 4 pictures of these animals. Like I said, again, it took me more than 8 years to find all. The last one, which is the one that lives in the mountains, the Persian horn viper. So it's very special. Samophis shikari is sand racer, and this is a slightly or mildly venomous snake. Its bite will not kill you, but it will cause you significant worry, especially if you don't get the anti-venom in time. This is a very interesting snake. It's a boa, Yeah, it's related to the python family. It's called Eryx jaikari or Jaikar sand boa. If you ever see this in the desert, don't worry, it's not venomous. You can even pick it up very carefully, but I don't promote handling snakes. Right? You didn't hear that from me. This species also is very interesting, especially because it has eyes above its head. So what happens is it hides itself underneath the sand with only its eyes sticking above the ground. You may have seen some National Geographic documentaries. Planet Earth is also has some information on these boas. So it's a very interesting snake. Litorhynchus diadema is a leaf-nosed snake, again, non-venomous and very common all throughout the UAE. Platyceps rhodorhachis is a wadi racer. As the name suggests, it's a wadi snake. It lives in the waters wherever water flows or very close to water. So it obviously likes the mountains of Fujairah, Ras Al Khaimah, and other places. Pteridoscincus kesserlingi is called the common wonder gecko. All right, this is an endangered species which has populations dwindling all across Dubai to Ras Al Khaimah because of construction. All right, unfortunately, its habitat has degraded significantly since the 80s, and now it only remains in certain pockets. So it's a diminishing species, unfortunately. Trapelis flavimaculatus is the yellow spotted agama, which is another interesting species. It's related to agamas which can be found in India as well. Pseudotrapalis cynidus is a wadi species, and it likes to thrive where there are lots of rocks, and it basks on in the early morning sun on rocks, typically such as this. This is a male that has just turned blue. He wasn't blue when I saw him first, so obviously my presence turned him blue, which is what he's trying to showcase the fact that he's upset with my presence being there. So he turns blue in seconds, just like some Indian agamas. This is a Stenodactylus doriae, or dune sand gecko, eating a camel spider. All right, I didn't get the actual scene, but I caught it just as this animal had eaten half of the camel spider, the poor camel spider that you can see in this image, only the legs sticking out of this mouth. So it's a very interesting scene. This is an Ishnacola species, very, very interesting find. This is a tarantula that I found in the UAE. It's an actual tarantula, not as big as the South American ones, but pretty close, right? It can fit on the size of, it can fit on my palm quite easily. So finding a tarantula or a tropical animal like tropical species on Arabia tells you a lot of things. It tells me that Arabia wasn't always desert, all right? It was landlocked with different continents, and millions of years back, probably around 65 million years back, when the late Cretaceous period was in full swing, just about after the dinosaurs died out, this place was green. That can be explained because of the oil found, all right? Oil is remnants of the greenery that used to exist out in this place millions of years ago. This is a camel spider, close up. Yes, it is. It does look a lot scary, but it is not a venomous species, so if you see a camel spider, don't worry too much. It may run towards you because if you find it during the day, it's looking for shade. And as a large mammal, you provide a lot of shade. Even scorpions run towards you when you uncover them in the mornings because they're looking for shade. They don't want to sting you, for example. But you must, if you find this or any other species like scorpions or snakes, the first thing you do is avoid it. There's no need to go trying to touch it or trying to understand what it is, because if you upset it, it will strike. This is another interesting wasp that I found. It's called the cuckoo wasp. All right, it's a very funny species because it is blue and green, which is kind of funny colors for the desert. This is found on a rough tree. We have a lot of rough trees where I work, and some of the rough trees were flowering, and these wasps were out in large numbers. These are a couple of wasps mating. All right. Yes, the one down below is a female. All right. This is a mantis again, another rare species. It's called Oxyotipus nilotica in Latin, and in English it's called the fairy mantis. I do not know why they call it the fairy mantis, but it's a very pretty looking mantis. This is a caterpillar trying to mimic a snake. All right. This is called Batesian mimicry, when animals try to mimic other animals to survive or to evade predators. This small caterpillar was trying aggressively to strike at me because I was very close to it, trying to take a picture of it, and it kept attacking me as if like a snake would. So it's very interesting. Animals have defense mechanisms and camouflage techniques as well. This is another interesting caterpillar, all right? What you're looking at are false eyes, which are really dots, tiny blue dots on its head, just below its eyes, which it inflates with air, and then the eyes expand to show two false eyes. This is to ward off predators, right? This is a very interesting species. It almost has a dog-like pose here with its tail in the back. This is the same species when it's a lot more bigger. It changes color to brown, and here you can clearly see it has the Iron Man look, as I call it. This is a ground mantis. The one that I had on my hand earlier is a praying mantis. So it's what we call a striped mantis, whereas this mantis prefers to be on the ground. This is an Acylidae species robber fly. It's called a robber fly because it attacks flies. It is a fly too, but it basically catches flies in thin air and eats them in flight. And it's actually, they call it a highwayman. It's a man's best friend in the desert. I love these animals, especially because they get rid of all the flies around you. This is a baby purple sunbird that we had a nest on our ghaf tree inside our office area. We were happy and honored to witness its birth from when it came out of the egg until it fledged into an adult. Buboescalaphus is a pharaoh eagle owl, and you have a lot of these species out in the deserts of the UAE. This species is a typically desert-dwelling species, and as an owl, it comes out mostly at night. This one I was lucky to find it during the day because I disturbed it from its hiding place. By mistake, not on purpose, of course. Gerbilis cheesemani is a desert rat, a desert rodent. It's a gerbil, which you find in the deserts at night. It's nocturnal. It's like a mini kangaroo, a very, very pretty creature. That's all I have for now. I thought I'll keep it short. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me.
Let's see the questions. I'm sure there are some questions, and we have some nature enthusiasts in the audience. I know there are a lot of people from Rajasthan. Ajmal, if you remember, we have the bird watching club in our campus in Pilani. And one of the first talks in DNHG, which is the natural history group that we did, was the comparative study of the birds in Rajasthan and here. So that was very welcome, but I know in the audience there are many nature enthusiasts. So let's have the questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I have three naive questions. One is, how are these species named? I mean, is there...
Okay. Naive,
how do you
all questions are good questions. Yes.
Then what is the average distance between you and the model?
Okay.
When you take photographs?
Model.
And any interesting incidents while taking photos?
Oh, lots. A good question, really. When you ask about the distance, what you have to understand is these are animals, wild animals, all right? All of these are wild animals. They're not inside zoos or inside Dubai Zoo or Sharjah Zoo, all right? So you have to be extremely careful when you take pictures of these animals. I have a golden philosophy. Never spend more than a minute taking pictures of any animal. I never do. That owl that you saw, a pharaoh eagle owl, was nesting. If I had spent more than 5 minutes, it would have been disturbed to the point that it would have left its nest to avoid me or avoid my presence, because it would think that I would come back again and pose a problem for its family. So rule number one of photography, even with the animals that take pictures at night, because I'm using flash. I'm guilty in many ways, but for that reason, I'd never spent more than a minute taking pictures of animals, and especially with snakes, you have to be extremely careful. The rule of the thumb is keep at least a 5 feet gap distance. When you want a really good picture up close, you have to be very careful and never take more than a few pictures. Not just for your own sake, but don't forget that snakes have eyes as well, and when you flash them a lot with artificial light, they get temporarily blind, which puts them in a lot of could put them into trouble, right? Nomenclature, very interesting question. Nomenclature, Charles Darwin initiated it in many ways, all right? So they have what we call a binomial system, all right? 2 names. Sorry, Carlos Linnaeus was the one who invented it, and Charles Darwin, of course, had named a lot of animals as well. Thank you. But a binomial nomenclature has the name of the species, of the genus, and the species. So us, we are humans, so we are Homo sapiens. Homo is the genus, and sapiens is the species. So similarly, that's why you have two names behind every animal. If you go further, you go into family, order, superfamily. That's very complicated, but technically, first name, last name, like we have. First name is your name, and last name is your family name. So it's the same concept in animals, but it gets a bit tricky because animals are named based on different guidelines by the International Taxonomic Society, right? So it's very complicated, but that's the general idea. Okay. Hope I answered your questions.
Yes. Can we have the questions, 2 or 3 of them together, please? So then, if there are common questions, we can
Hi,
consolidate.
Ajmal. I have 2 questions.
Hi, where are you?
One, why don't you have large predators in the UAE, like other deserts do have them?
Right.
And second one is that you said that there is a similarity between the kejri tree
Yes.
that we find in India and in UAE.
Yes.
But so far as I understand, both of them are flowering plants.
Correct.
They evolved when the continents were already separating. So
Right.
how does that bridge happen?
Very good question. Let me talk about the rough tree, the kejri tree first, all right? When the jigsaw puzzle can be deciphered, which is what it is right now, we're all the continents right now are on tectonic plates. And tectonic plates move and shift every year, a few inches, sometimes a few millimeters in many areas. When you go back in time a few million years, you will find, obviously the tectonic plate structure was different in the sense that continents were differently arranged. India was nowhere near Asia at all, more than 300 million years back, which is why it's called a subcontinent, because it really was down south and it smashed into southern Asia or Central Asia, and that's why we have the Himalayas, which are still smashing up into Central Asia, and that's why Mount Everest is rising by a few millimeters every year. So to answer your question about the kejri tree, it's a very, very interesting question because the kejri tree is Prosopis cineraria, belonging to the Fabaceae family, and it's very likely that this tree evolved a few million years back in an area which is now separated. But at one point in time, Balochistan, Sindh, which is present-day Pakistan, Iran, and the UAE were landlocked with Gujarat, with the northwestern areas of India. So this is a few million years back. And as the tectonic plates moved apart, the separation happened. Some species survived, like the kejri tree, because it's very, very resilient, and some species could not survive. So whatever survived managed to thrive in its own ways. Whatever could not survive just vanished. So that explains the kejri tree, or the ghaf, which is the national tree of the UAE. And it's also a tree that can be found in Gujarat, Rajasthan, the Thar deserts. It's the same species completely. It's not even a subspecies. Exactly the same. A desert species and desert survivor. So.
On your last slide, did you say that was a kangaroo-like animal?
Yes.
And does that have any relationship to the kangaroos in Australia?
Yes,
Then
they do.
what does it tell us about the relationship between the two?
Right. It tells you about evolution. Right. In many ways, the desert rat that you saw, but we call it the desert rat, it's a gerbil, is related to our own rats that we found at home, the common Mus musculus, the common rats, and the kangaroos. The kangaroo is just an overgrown rodent. That's what it is. And it's interesting. The kangaroos, let me explain it this way. Australia was a desolate place and uninhabited by humans even before the Aboriginals came here for thousands of years. All right. At that point in time, what happened was most likely some early rat-like species managed to reach the coasts of Australia. All right. And then there were no natural predators in Australia. There were no cats. There were no dogs. There were no large mammals that were hunting. So the rat evolved into the kangaroo over thousands of years, of course, because it had nobody to worry about. It kept eating whatever it wanted to eat. It had large areas to roam. And in the end, it grew in size because it was eating nicely. And after a few million years, it turned into a big fat rat. And then the humans came, tuck, tuck, tuck. We just killed them all and put all the stress. So that's what happens with animals and plants. Wherever there's no competition, they evolve completely as per they grow in size, they become rampant across the areas, they are able to thrive, etc. Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
please. One last question. Yeah.
Hey, one last question. You didn't mention the falcon. Is falcon not local to UAE?
No, the falcon is not local to the UAE. However, it's a migratory bird. All right, the falcon is local mostly to Central Asia and the steppes of Asia, but it migrates towards the UAE, especially when it is too cold in Central Asia. So the Bedouins have always been
Fascinated, actually,
fascinated
right?
by the falcons.
Falconry. Falconry is hugely
Falconry is
practiced
huge.
here.
Yeah, it's practiced
So-
here, but you have to understand that the falcons only come here for a certain period of time, traditionally. They never stayed here for more than a few years or a few months, for example. Once the summer hit, they headed back again to Central Asia or Iran or even India. The Amur falcons, the gears, they're all native to Central Asia and other parts of the world, but not specifically to Arabia, because falcons are animals that need to feed, and in the deserts you don't have much except when the weather gets a bit cooler and more animals are coming out, like the gerbils. So the falcons will hunt the gerbils, they'll hunt other birds as well. So the falcons were not native to Arabia at all. However, they're on a migratory route which includes a pit stop on Arabia.
How can visitors How can visitors go on a nature walk or a birding trip with experts
Maliha.
like you here?
Yeah, he was keen on going, and all he went to was Ras Al Khor, the bird sanctuary. I told him to
That's
go to
still
the
not bad. That still houses a lot of flamingos.
But that was like we were in a cage and birds were free in
birds
the
were
hide.
free.
All
So
right.
the hide was
Well, the alternative, you have quite a few. Ras Al Khaimah, there are a few good spots. There are a few good spots in the mangroves of Abu Dhabi where you can actually see birds with a scope, and if you have a telescope,
So is
binocular.
Ajmal free tomorrow morning?
no, but I thought you're flying tomorrow. I told you come with
I'd
us
love to say
tomorrow
yes.
morning to show
That's
the-
what I do as well. I take people out
Yeah.
so you can understand and see all the animals that I've seen.
I've been on a
sure
couple
exist.
of his field trips, and it's really
It gets
exotic. But he
monotonous.
gets after all these snakes, and I've seen the Wadi runner and everything else on one of the field trips with you and Gary.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
yeah,
There I have
dangerous
two
things.
short
yeah?
questions. Can I quickly ask? So this is not coming from a place of fear, but I just want to know where in the UAE is anti-venom actually available. So,
You know
And
why
Very,
they're
very
asking
relevant
this?
question.
the second question
You're asking the
is-
right person.
exactly. And the second question is, do we have sidewinders in the UAE?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, let me answer both the questions positively. It is not as bad as you think. Yes, there is antivenom available in the UAE. It's called polyvalent antivenom, and it's specifically designed for soft-scale vipers or horned vipers bites. All right. So, if in the worst eventuality, if somebody does get bitten by a soft-scale viper, they can head to Rashid Hospital in Dubai and Al Qasimi Hospital in Sharjah, and the Central Hospital in Abu Dhabi, which I believe the name has changed now. And all of these hospitals stock anti-venom. But the problem is identifying, exactly. Plus the problem is with the soft-scale viper, you don't have time. You do not have time.
Now, Ajmal, we are taking all these people from around the world on a desert tour later this evening. And guess where we are going? Yeah,
Where?
that's why they're asking all these questions. So you need to understand.
It's
you
winter
know,
time, the
because
snakes are hiding, don't worry.
Snakes, yes, I love that part. Okay. So we are taking them to Lisali. So the desert conservation zone, that is hardly it's a conversation zone.
a conservation
so
zone,
there's
don't worry, you'll
nothing
be
to, I
fine.
just want you to tell them that that is one of those baby places.
Told me that before.
Yeah.
I would have said, oh yes, everywhere you go you find antivenom, but I don't want to lie, all right? Don't worry, the weather right now is so cold that the snakes do not like to be out on the sands because it's too cold. They're cold-blooded. They only come out for a short time early morning to get some sun, and then back into the holes they go. So you don't have the potential, the possibility of you finding a snake is 1 in a million right now.
Yeah.
All right? Or 1% in 100%. That much I guarantee
You know, but
you.
Bitsians, we do a lot of things which most of the people don't do.
Okay.
So, you know,
In that case, please do not
buy a snake
poke
is-
your hands in a hole. That's all I would recommend, okay? Do whatever you want. Do not put your hand in a hole, and don't make sure you have a good torchlight with you when you head out at night. I don't think you're going out at night, are you?
No, we're going to a campsite
Okay.
with a lot of
You'll see
fire
a lot of-
and light and stuff.
Okay,
So we're
that's
okay.
fine. That's
Yes,
fine. All right.
Yes.
Second question was again Sidewinder. Yes. Well, snakes on Arabia move in three manners. Okay. One is called sinus rhythm, which is S-shaped. Okay. One is called sidewinding, which is an S-shape but vertically. So they're moving like this on the sands, like a sidewinder does. This, sorry.
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
I have
we
a whole album for tracks
Oh, yeah,
as well.
tracks.
So anyway,
Early morning.
Oh, if you'd
Trek.
like to know more about and
Let's
see
go.
more animals, hook up with me on Facebook. All right, my first name dot last name, and I have different albums for. I have one specific album for rough trees with over 600 images of separate rough trees in the UAE. So just to give an example, and on my tracks page, I have tracks of all the animals that I've taken pictures of. So that's very interesting. Sidewinders do exist in the UAE, and there's two species of vipers. The soft-scale viper and the Arabian horn viper, which follow the technique only when it is sandy. When the road is rough or when it's a tar road, they go in a sinus fashion, straight. But when it gets sandy desert,
Yeah.
they change the pattern and they do that to conserve energy and because of the heat. They're doing that because there's less contact between their body and the sand when they sidewind, as moving straight in a line. Because then they're always on the ground. Whereas while sidewinding, most of the time, they lift their body off of the air, off of the sand, sorry. So that gets them forward.
Can I request Zareen to come on stage? And Ajmal, that was just fabulous. Thank you so much. A round of big
Most
applause.
welcome. Most
And
welcome.
if you
Thank
guys like these two beautiful people, can we have a little token of affection? Please be brought on to the stage for both of them. Thank you so much. Please.